as I had said earlier, Mitch was going to present today. He had an issue come up. Actually, I believe one of his field crews had to quarantine, which made him go to the field. So Landon, that got Landon's attention. So Landon and I were going to just kind of tag team on, and anybody else, obviously, business owner, runs a survey department, anybody, obviously, definitely chime in. So it's just kind of a open forum, and we're going to have Mitch come back at a later date and actually present his PowerPoint, because he's got like 63 slides on there. So he's got a pretty good presentation there. So we will kind of turn it over to Landon. Landon worked on a few things this weekend to kind of just come up with an outline. So I'll let Landon kind of just lead off with it, and then we'll just kind of run in between with it in between. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think maybe I can introduce each one of these, Trent, and then I'll give you a chance to kind of respond. It'll be interesting to hear if we have the same challenges or if we have different challenges. So
you can share your screen if you want to. So.
Okay. Yeah. Let me do that for you guys. I can just show you this outline here.
There's tons of experience on here. So even.
All right. Hang on. Let's see. I got to make sure. Can you guys see that outline?
Nope, now it's just your space.
How about over here?
There you go.
Okay. So, yeah, so I looked at that. Trent sent me the slide deck from Mitch, and I got in there and I was like, oh man, there's all kinds of tons of great information in here, and there's no way I could present on this topic. So I told Trent, man, tell Mitch he's got to come back, and maybe I'll talk about some stuff that I feel comfortable talking about. So, but it's on the same theme, which is kind of challenges to running a survey business. So that's a great topic for me because I've only been doing it for about 11 months. And so I'm kind of fresh from the trenches. And so I've been surveying about 20 years. And the first 12 years I spent with one company. And I thought I was going to work there until I retired. And that's just not how it panned out. And basically, I had to start a business because I kept getting fired everywhere else I worked. Is kind of what happened. So, I'm what they call a little bit more of an honorary surveyor. So, all joking aside, one of the challenges I've had as a land surveyor is working for larger civil survey firms. And just getting the civil side of the house to do things the right way can be a challenge, especially on the boundary side. I regularly had fights with I don't want to call them fights. Let's call them intense discussions. I regularly had some intense discussions with my civil engineers about, for example, the requirement to set a record, to file a record of survey. And so that was it's more than one of the places I've worked. I've been branded as a troublemaker because I insist on following the law. So that's just something that I tell people, being a licensed surveyor, it's just different than being just an employee, right? And even if you work for a company and you're not an owner, if you're a licensed professional, it's somewhere in between being an owner and being just a regular professional. There is a difference. When you're a licensed professional and you're signing and sealing your own work, you carry some responsibility with you. I'll just give you a quick example before we dive into some of the business stuff. But when I first got licensed, I went to the company that I'd worked for, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 years, and said, hey, I would like to start keeping a copy of the key information for all of the surveys that I have to sign. So I would like the point files and stripped down versions of the drawings and whatever records we pull, record maps we pull. And I said, I would like to just keep that. I don't want to be sneaky about it. I want you guys to know, I need to be able to answer questions about this work at least 10 years into the future. So that's a statute of limitations in California is 10 years. But, ideally, I'd like to be able to answer a question 20 years into the future about one of my surveys. And they told me no. They said, you absolutely are not allowed to take any of that information outside of this office, period. And so, I had a dilemma there as a licensed professional. What do I do? So I'll tell you what I did. I took it anyways. Now, I'm not telling you to do that if you work for somebody, but the reason I tell you that story is, what I think the company was owned by 3 civil engineers. So I think, part of the challenge I had there was those guys didn't understand that I was more than just an employee at that point, right? As a licensed professional, and that there needed to be some give and take there. And so, one of the things if we got some younger guys and gals listening that aren't licensed yet, but plan on being licensed, you got to think about how that's going to change your relationship with your employer, because it does and it should, right? You become personally responsible for your work, and there's a natural tension there between the desire to make up as much profit as possible and doing things the right way, and there's a tension there. And one of the reasons why I started a company a year ago is because I didn't want to be told by a civil engineer that there wasn't enough money in the budget to do the job right. And I understand you need to make money to be in business, but if I want to go back now, we were on a job today, and I found a map. We had a map that was done by another surveyor. We were surveying right next door, and we went and found his corners, and he found 4 corners on the outside and was supposed to set 2 new ones. So he was doing a 2-lot parcel map. And this was in 2016. I didn't find his 2 new corners I didn't find, which I'm assuming he didn't set. And the 4 corners on the outside that he found, I wish I had a picture of them with me right now, but these are the most bent, tweaked, rusted old pipes you could possibly find, right? And so I told my partner, I said, hey, I'm going to call that guy and see if he'll go rehab those corners. Like, he needs to go out and replace those 4 old pipes, and he needs to set new pipes. He needs to set his pipes where he said he did. And if he's not willing to do that, I told my partner, you and I will probably come back and replace those 4 old pipes. We'll put new pipes in with my tag, and we'll show that on my ROS map. And there was another corner today. We found another bent corner. It was a bent pipe that we spun, and I put my rebar and cap in. Because I think, that's the professional thing to do, right? Now, I don't just go out and willy-nilly replace monuments. If a monument's in good condition and it's got a tag on it, I won't mess with it. But these were, pretty seriously bent, rusted old pipes, and they weren't going to be around much longer in their current condition. So now here's the problem I got. So we're going to go back probably and replace those 2 pipes, and that wasn't in the budget. So when I work for a civil, what do you think the civil would tell me? He'd say, yeah, you're not doing that. That's not in the budget,
No,
right?
they go get an ASR. That's what the civils say.
Yeah. So, now I own my own company. If I want to lose a few $100s doing the right thing, I can choose to do that. And so that's an advantage of running your own business. There's all kinds of advantages to not running your own business, but that's one advantage of running your own business. So I guess part of, my wife and I have talked about, me maybe going back to work for somebody. It's been tough. It's been a tough year. I burned through some savings. COVID's been tough. I'm just being totally honest with you guys. It was a rough year to start a business. So I started my business in February, like exactly 30 days before the world exploded. So, we've talked about, if I were to go back to work for somebody, and here's one of the things that we've talked about, and I've had some interest from some out-of-state companies, and we were talking about it. I was talking with a company in Texas, and I actually told her, it's easier for me to get a job for a company in a state where I'm not licensed, because then I eliminate all those issues, right? Like, then if the LS wants to cut corners, I just do what I'm told, right? It's his stamp. And so the only reason I share that is just, if you're not licensed yet, but you're going to be licensed, you need to prepare yourself for that, right? Like, it can potentially change your relationship with your employer. You're going to be personally responsible for some things that you weren't responsible for prior to that. And you got to think about that. Now, if you work for a really good company, they're going to understand that, and they'll take care of you. But, I think there's more companies that don't understand that relationship than there are companies that do. And it's things like being able to keep your own records. It's things like, I tell people, like, I got a civil engineer I'm working for another company right now that he just lost his last licensed surveyor about 3 months ago. And so he's got a final map that he wants me to sign. So the tentative map's done and he just wants me to sign the final map. And I told him, like, that's not how I work. Like, I'll sign your final map. We're going to drop the final map. But I told him, I said, look, I got to go recover all your control. I got to go recover all the corners you found. I got to make sure everything fits. I got to make sure you don't have any busts in your map. You know, like, I'm going to COGO your map from scratch. Right. And he's like, oh, well, I wasn't prepared to pay for all that. And, I was like, but that's part of what being in responsible charge means. Right. So, like, I don't sign boundary surveys if I haven't put my boots on that job, period. Right. Like, I'm not saying I got to see every corner, but I'd like to see every corner. Right. And so you got to ask yourself, now I haven't always had the privilege of doing that. When I worked at a 500-person firm, and we had 13 field crews, and, like, you think I got to see those corners? And looking back on that, man, was that a smart thing for me to do? I don't know. I was young and I didn't know any better. I know a little better now than I used to know better. I think you can do that if you really trust your crews, but I think you got to be careful. So anyways, make a long story short, I started a business in February because I kept getting fired from everywhere else I worked. And, so so I want to talk about, like, the four big challenges I've had the last 11 months. And we'll see if Trent deals with some of these. It'd be interesting to hear from a more established business person. But so here's the number one problem I have. It's dealing with misinformation in the marketplace. And I put in combination with that just educating potential clients. So before I started this business, I lacked respect for real estate agents and brokers. And now that I've been in business for 11 months, I completely lack respect for real estate agents and brokers. And, like, that is no joke. And so let me tell you, and that ties in with the kind of the misinformation part. So let me just tell you what my experience has been. So when I started this business almost a year ago, I wanted to focus on the private real estate market, not residential, but commercial, industrial, ag. And I figured, who do I need to get that work? I got to get to the local real estate brokers and local real estate agents. Okay. And so we made a real serious marketing push to do that. Like, I sent letters. I went to real estate offices and asked if I could come and speak. And I would say over the last year, I've talked in groups or one-on-one to probably 200, maybe 250 real estate agents in Central California. Okay. And so I'm going to let you guys, and, like, just an education effort, right? What does a surveyor do? What kind of questions should you answer or not answer if you don't have a survey? What's your liability? Because real estate agents have liability. They have a duty. They have what's called a fiduciary duty to ask the right questions for their clients. And I'm not talking about real estate agents that are selling single family homes here, folks. I'm talking about people that are dealing with commercial, industrial, and agricultural properties, right? Like, these are people that's supposed to know what they're doing. So you can see this on the website too. If you go to our website, I've got a form you can fill out. It's called a boundary and land title quick check. And I will do that for free for any commercial real estate agent that calls, any California or Nevada commercial real estate agent that calls my office can get a free boundary land title quick check. And here's what we do. We pull your grant deed and we pull all the survey maps in the area and we check that and we let you know, are your corners set? When was the last time the property was surveyed? Do we see any potential land title or boundary issues? Does your parcel close if it meets and bounds, right? And here was my thought with that. My initial thought was, there's so much property that gets bought and sold that needs a survey, and people just don't know. They're just ignorant, right? And so if I can just show them that they need a survey, I'm going to have more work than I can do. That was my plan. Okay. So I've talked to 250 real estate agents. How many surveys do you think I've done based off a lead from a real estate agent or broker in the last 12 months? Does anybody want to guess?
Less than 10.
Okay, the answer is 0. Trent's being generous.
Yeah,
I haven't done a single survey for a real estate agent or broker. Okay, I'd say we've probably done. I've done a half a dozen quick check forms, maybe 10 quick check forms. Okay, and so here's what I've learned. And like again, some of this is just I haven't been doing this very long. I've only been doing it a year, but I mean, I have talked literally till I'm blue in the face to real estate agents. Okay, and here's what I've come to this conclusion. They should basically be eliminated from the face of the earth. The world would be a better place. That's what I think. Hopefully we don't. I mean, if we have some on the call, they can counter that. But all joking aside, here's what I think's going on, right? Because something's going on here, right? There has to be a reason why the system works the way it does, despite my best efforts. And here's the only thing I can think of. Most real estate agents do not want to talk to a surveyor because all I'm going to do is find problems. And if I find problems, what happens to their deal, Trent?
Yes, it goes away.
We blow up their deal. And so here's what I've realized. So almost all of these agents and brokers are working on commission, right? So and typically I'm trying to sell to the buyer, right? The buyer wants the survey, not the seller, right? The seller doesn't want me to find problems. It's really the buyer that cares about what he's getting. Okay. But here's the problem with the buyer's agent. Okay. How many properties does the buyer's agent want to have to show his buyer? 1 or 10 or 100? Like, yeah, 1, right? He gets his highest hourly rate by showing 1 property, right? And so here's what I've realized, like just the way we've structured the economic incentives for real estate agents and brokers, they do not want to talk to a land surveyor, right? Because all I'm going to do is blow up their deal. Or I'm either going to slow down their deal or they're going to have to go find another property because I blow up the deal that they had lined up in the hopper, right? And they're losing that commission. So here's what I've decided. Until we change the way real estate agents and brokers are paid, okay, until they get a fixed fee for every property they show, right, to a certain point in the process, or we start to sue more agents and brokers for neglecting their fiduciary duty, I am not going to be able to change this. Okay, so here's what I've learned, and I'm still trying to adapt to this world. Most of the time, I lay in the fetal position and mostly depressed. But what I think I'm going to try and do, what we're trying to do now is we're trying to get directly to the buyers, right? So we're going to, we're trying to get directly to the buyer either through the internet or through, professional associations like the local ag association or organizations like that, local chamber of commerce. Because here's the deal. The brokers and the agents don't care. It's the buyer that cares, and maybe the bank that's making the loan that cares, but the broker doesn't care. And the buyer's broker doesn't care, and the seller's broker definitely doesn't care, right? So I have to try and get to the person whose money is on the line, right? Like you want to know if you're buying a piece of property, if there's major problems. Most of the time you want to know that, right? And so one of the struggles I've had is just trying to, I'll tell you another common misconception that I deal with, and then we'll let Trent chime in on this one. But the other common misconception I deal with is I don't need a survey because I have title insurance. I hear that 4 times a month. Okay. And so I've come to the conclusion that title insurance is the most misunderstood product in the real estate industry, right? Now, I'm not telling you not to buy title insurance. You should buy title insurance. But here's what I tell people. Buying title insurance and thinking it's going to solve all the real estate problems you might have is like going out into a blizzard in a bikini, right? Title insurance just doesn't cover very much, right? It doesn't. In fact, you could drive a school bus through the exceptions in your typical title insurance policy. And here's the crazy part. They're not hiding it from you. Grab your typical commercial title insurance policy and read the exceptions to coverage, okay? So I'm going to give you 2 of the most common boilerplate exceptions to coverage in a commercial title policy. And I'm going to just ask you guys, what do you think that excludes, okay? or in other words, what do the exceptions include? So almost every commercial policy you read has what they call the survey exception, which says title insurance will not cover anything that would be resolved or revealed by a properly executed survey. Okay. Now you ask yourself, how many problems with a property wouldn't be revealed by a properly executed survey? My argument is not very much. Like, there's not very much you're not going to find in a properly executed survey. That is a huge exception to title insurance coverage. Now, title companies will take that out. They will remove that exception. But does anybody know what you have to do if you want that exception removed from your title insurance coverage? What do you got to give the title company? You got to give them a survey, right? That's the whole point of a land title survey, is to remove the title insurance exception to coverage, right? So there's another huge exception in almost all title policies, which is any facts that would be discovered by a physical inspection of the property. Okay, that's in almost every commercial title policy. So again, ask yourself, what kind of problems could you push into that hole, right? I can tell you right now, that covers all unwritten rights, period, right? Prescriptive rights, adverse possession, encroachments, all of that falls into that exception to coverage, right? So part of the misinformation that I'm having to deal with is just getting people to understand. Again, these aren't mom and pop buying a home. These are people that are buying and selling commercial property, industrial property, retail property, industrial property. They don't understand what's covered by their title insurance, right? So I'll tell you what I got. I haven't done it yet, but I got just 2 weeks ago, I got a letter, a potential client that got a letter of denial of coverage from their title insurance company. Okay. And I have a copy of it, and it's a national title company. Okay. And it's a 3-page letter from their attorney explaining why they aren't going to cover, why they're denying coverage. And I'm going to post that on LinkedIn, right? Because the world, like, you don't see that until you have a problem, right? And so people need to know, they need to understand, look, your title company is they're going to deny coverage almost always out of the gate. They're going to deny coverage, right? And then if you want coverage, if they deny coverage and you want to fight that, do you know who you have to hire? It's not a land surveyor. Who is it?
All the attorneys.
You got to hire an attorney. You got to hire an attorney to go fight your title insurance company. If you look, you can research the case law. There's all kinds of cases in California of people suing their title insurance company because the title insurance company won't provide coverage. Now, I'm not even saying the title companies are at fault, right? What I'm trying to tell you is there is a huge amount that isn't covered by your title insurance policy, right? And if people knew that, they would get a survey, right? Half the time. So, like, your average person who's, whatever, is buying some property in California, they ask their real estate agent, hey, my cousin's sister-in-law told me that I might want to get a survey. And what do you think the agent tells them? You got to remember, the agent doesn't want a survey. So what do you think the agent tells them? You don't need a survey. You have title insurance, right? That's what they get told.
Hey, Landon,
yeah.
Jesse White shared a file, and it's a PNG file. It just says, how much does it cost to hire a land surveyor? Typical range, $346 to $670.
Yeah. Who's that
problem, right?
Yeah, who's that from?
Jesse.
Oh, okay. So let me respond to that, and then I'll let Trent jump in. So so the other issue I have is, your typical real estate agent is telling people boundary surveys cost between $500 and $1,200 in my area. That's what people are being told right now. I can tell you right now, even the guys that are cutting corners aren't doing surveys in my neighborhood for $1,200, right? It's 3 times that. Like, the cheapest you're going to get it is $2,500, $3,500, right? And yeah, so that's another challenge we have, right? Is people, and like, look, I don't tell people how much the real estate agent should charge. Should the real estate agent be telling people how much I charge? Like, they have no clue, right? They have no idea what it costs to get a survey done, right? And so if you watch my YouTube channel, not my learning channel, but my marketing channel, I would say about every other video I do is about why surveys cost what they cost, right? Because there's a huge misinformation problem out there and people don't understand. I was on the phone with a real estate agent today. He owns some property up in Castro Valley. It hasn't been surveyed since the GLO went through. I mean, it's old, right? It's got some Caltrans right away running through it. There's no monument set. And so this
probably all Rancho.
Yeah, it's old. Yeah, it might be Rancho. Yeah. So anyways, I looked at some records and did some poking around. I figured I got 2 or 3 days crawling around the hills there in the East Bay, trying to find some corners. And I don't even know if I can put it on the ground. Like, it might require title action to clean up, a boundary line agreement or a quiet title action. So I told the lady, hey, $20,000, right? She needed some other stuff too. She needed a driveway easement, some other things, but told her $20,000. The bulk of that was the boundary. Probably 15K of that was the boundary. And so she said, her and her husband are real estate agents. So she said, I want you to call and talk to my husband. I said, okay, I'll talk to your husband. So he called me today. And he said, hey, $20,000? Because I don't understand. He said, I got this survey 10 years ago. It was $3,000. I said, okay, great. I said, I need a copy of that survey, that $3,000 survey. He says, well, I don't have a copy. I said, okay, well, did the surveyor set the corners? He said, well, he didn't set them all. He only set 4. This property has about 12 corners probably. He said, he only set 4. I said, okay, well, what did he set? Oh, he set some stakes. I said, okay, he set some wood stakes? Yeah, he set some wood stakes. I said, okay. I said, here's the deal. He set wood stakes, they're gone. He didn't give you a copy of the survey, and I know he didn't file because I checked with the county survey. So I said, look, you got an illegal survey. The guy didn't leave behind any footprints for me to follow. And even if he had set permanent monuments and I could find them, I don't know how he put them there. I don't know if they're any good. So I said, that's why your survey is $20,000 and not $3,000, right? And I said, look, I got to crawl around the woods for 3 days, and I don't know what I'm going to find. And you know what? At the end of the conversation, the guy said, you know what? I'm glad I talked to you. I understand now why you told my wife what it was going to. She said, I get it. I understand why it's going to cost what it costs.
I have a good point, guys. I'm Leif Adams. I'm in OC. Been here 44 years surveying. Started out, right out of college, got degrees, all that stuff. I got, all that kind of. But one of the main things that the OC chapter has done for years and years is they have the title, and the first American title is big down here. So they have a big, like, Washington Cathedral in Costa Mesa there. And they always come and show up and talk to everybody. They're hiring their own surveyors now. Then just to get out of everybody's hair here, number 2, I'm over at the golf course at Brea Creek up in Brea, California. And I get to golf with some guys, and he's having a fence issue with his neighbors, right? So then all of a sudden, well, yo, you're a surveyor and all this. And I said, you know what? And he told me the story that he called a couple companies, and it would be $5,000 to come out and survey his property. Now, most of the property surveys here in Orange County, you could probably do for 15, no problem. Walk away from them and they're good to go. They're all subdivision maps. Boom, everybody has record. I told him to take 100-foot tape and just measure down the side yard, use his track map, which is on his deed of title, right? So, boom. It's that kind of thing that we go through nowadays where everybody wants it cheaper and better. And that's, it's, after 44 years, and then half the people he called said, we won't even come out and do it. So that's the kind of thing you face in doing in a heavily congested areas or heavily urbanized areas, I should say. You know, that type of thing. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And so Mr. Adams, I don't know, like I probably wouldn't do that survey either. And here's what I tell people. We can talk about this a little bit on my number 2, but most of the time I tell people, if you're just trying to put a fence back, just put your new fence back where your old fence was, because probably it's not worth the cost of a survey to most folks.
We all understand that. If you follow Brown anyhow, then lines of occupation, standards of monumentation, you understand the trail of evidence, that stuff. I've been doing this for 44 years. It's just, I'm saying, it's kind of funny, but those are the kind of, and I have to agree with you. Those are the kind of aspects you have to go do. And then real estate agents, and, I was up in Big Bear area and Lake Arrowhead area where homes are millions of dollars and things like that.
Yep.
And they don't even care about fence lines. They just boom, and lately getting a lot of out-of-state people wanting to come in and do ALTAs for everybody here because they're cheap.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. So he's going to get me totally sidetracked. So let me keep it short. So
I'm going to let you go at this.
All right. Yeah, no, but yeah, I got a company that's doing altas in my area. And what they do is they fly a field crew out, from Texas or Arkansas or wherever they're back east, and they're paying those guys $12 an hour. So I
would say Blue from Arkansas.
Yeah, they fly them out with an instrument, and they rent a truck, and they come in and do these wham bam altas, and then and they're not filing record survey maps. And I tell you what, I'm gonna get every California LS those guys got stamping their stuff. You just give me enough time. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. But so Trent, I'm just curious, do you see the same kind of just broad misunderstandings that I'm seeing in your practice?
So I'll say I'm 12 and a half years into this business, into my business, I should say. 25 years in surveying, 12 and a half years of owning my own business. And we're at 27 employees. So a little bit different, but we're all going to have the same problems. I will tell you, it kind of goes into your number 2, right? Determining your place in the market as well. So I just did the math, and I would bet I haven't taken 100 phone calls in 12 and a half years from a regular real estate attorney or a regular real estate agent. Now we'll get, 50 a year from commercial real estate agents, but not regular residential real estate agents. So, just on, kind of a side note, from a marketing standpoint, you've got a lot of time and effort invested in the residential real estate agent, which, might be, there's just not enough, like you say, there's too much arguing with them. They don't want to pay for it to begin with anyway. So there's a few people in the chat, Heather and George and all these guys definitely focus on the lending side and the commercial real estate agents, your commercial real estate brokers, that kind of stuff, where those altas are going to come from. So we've had the question a few times, how much time do you spend educating the client on, and I would say overall, most of our clients will spend, maybe 20 or 25%, because a lot of our clients are those commercial real estate agents, are civil engineers, that kind of stuff. So they know what they want, and they're calling for a specific purpose. So I guess, it's really starting your business off right and getting the clientele that you want first, and then kind of start to build from there. So the real estate agents definitely take you down a rabbit hole.
Guys, can I make a quick interjection?
Of course.
I spent my life surveying in Southern California, basically San Bernardino Mountains in Southern California. And I've gone commercial. I've been in the union for 35 years. What happens a lot of times when you do boundary surveying and that type of thing, and you're working with individuals, when we're down here in urban areas, it's well known. Fences are here, walls are here, boom, there's not really much to make a difference for unless you really have an issue. And then we know the procedures of and the evidence of surveying. But when you're in a not urban area, when you're out in the mountains and you're out in areas where, boom, there are no fences and there are things like that, these things really do apply constantly. And everybody really doesn't sometimes understand the value of what you're providing them. So you need to take a look at that sometimes. And, you know, I started in Lake Arrowhead, you know, Big Bear area, things like that, lot surveying, big cadastral surveying for, you know, GLO stuff on the backside out in the desert, mining claims and things like that. Then I joined the union and I got into downtown urban areas and things like that. It's there. There's no question about where your boundary is. It's here. But if you're out in the woods, and you're out in the field, and you're out in somewhere where there's open range, then these things still do apply to you. They're still important that you follow through the procedures and the things that we have going on.
Well, I can make a comment. I'd like to say I've done probably enough Alta surveys in the Northern Nevada area to not allow me to sleep for the rest of my life. Exactly. But I've seen more title reports that one of the exceptions from coverage is a previously done Alta survey by another firm that they can't provide you a copy of. What do you do with that? Number one. Number two, you go out there and there are no corners on the ground. When you do an Alta survey, if you establish the boundary, which I think based on the standards you need to do, you have to set corners. And people don't do that. They don't file records of survey. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And why any of us would even want to take that work on, I scratch my head and wonder. I pretty much confined myself to water rights in the last few years, and I'm getting in enough trouble with those because they're usually wrong too. But at any rate, just my 2 cents.
Well, I think Trent would have a good answer to that since he's a Nevada boy and he understands that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, you know, even in our business model, it's Altas make up about maybe 10 or 11%. So we're not, you know, heavily involved in the Altas either. And really it's the repeat business on the Altas on our side as well. So it's that callback to do the updates and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, again, it's our, like Heather says, you find your niche. So theirs is municipality work or DOT work. You know, ours is more boundary topo engineering design for civil engineers. That's kind of our niche. And then, you know, construction is about 18 to 20% as well. So, like I say, find your niches and kind of run with a business model around those, but you got to be diverse. You don't want 100% or 80% into one particular market. So you got to find that happy medium diversity.
What about those individuals in Nevada, Trent, that don't follow the state statutes?
That's every single state in every survey in the country. So it's not a Nevada problem. It's a Florida problem. It's a, it's a survey problem. And that it goes to what Landon talked about earlier. It's that $3,000 survey versus the $2,000 or $20,000 survey. And I don't know if we're ever going to get away from that. You know, it's been a problem for 75. Well, you know, Steve Parrish can talk about it. It goes back to the Benson Syndicate, right? So he got paid to do a whole thousands and thousands of GLO corners and never set them in the ground. So it's not a new problem.
It's a problem that we're trying to help eliminate just by holding these mentoring Mondays sessions.
Absolutely. There you go.
You know,
absolutely.
Here we are preaching to the choir, and hopefully the choir will take their voices beyond.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Rob.
I wanted to share, so it's interesting timing that I was able to hop back on and hear what we're talking about tonight, this last conversation, because tomorrow morning, our home builder department is having our in-house training on searching corner searching. And so they're all going to come in, clock in, and then they're going out in the field and taking an hour class tomorrow morning from one of our PMs.
That's
so
awesome.
These are the kinds of training we're trying to provide for the people at my company. So
and 2 weeks from now, Landon's going to present on searching for corners and that kind of stuff. So
perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Another one to come back for. So
I was going to say, probably the perfect.
Trent?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. This is probably the perfect format for
Absolutely.
going after those type of attitudes and understanding laws and the things that require us to set monumentation, be responsible for monumentation, be active in what we do. I've constantly come across, like I said, I'm going on 50 years, like Rob, in this, state, up and down, and even in Oregon, Washington. And, people take shortcuts and they do things that aren't right. And, when we come back to them, and I do call a lot of people on their stuff, and I say, hey, you show this, but it's not there. What's up? Or it's there, but you don't show it. What's up with that? So these are things that, these are integrity and the aspect I think that Rob is trying to portray, Trent trying to do the same thing. It goes in cycles. And I've been through a lot of this, but you always got to remember, integrity is your priority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just on that side note, I'll throw out that Nevada just recently, as part of our continuing education requirements, require you to take 3 hours of your 30 hours have to be in ethics. So there you go. That's a start anyway.
Hi, Landon. I wanted to chime in here and just say I really appreciate you going through this and talking about real estate. I am from Alaska, born and raised, and I got my real estate license last year, well, partly to buy my own place, but also to unite land surveying and real estate. In my perspective in Alaska, the reason why I did it was I wanted to help real estate agents just defining property, what these exceptions mean, what easements mean. They don't even read the title report. And what I found out was they did not care. They wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. I was a waste of their time. And it was pretty grueling. So I went ahead and got my real estate license. And here in the spring, I'm going to start my own business called aklands.com. So I'd definitely like to get your information, but marketing maybe to the buyer, or just being more of a full service real estate, as in showing them remote properties in Alaska, to, of course, keeping that in one separate LLC. And then, of course, performing surveys for them to build the house, where they should build, find their corners and things like that. But it's very cutthroat and extremely cutthroat. So I had to find a broker that was okay with it, and that was very, very, very hard. So.
Okay. May I make a suggestion? You're doing just wonderful job there, if that's the case, and everything you're doing, and continue with that, and continuing doing the same thing Trent's doing with us, providing seminars to these people, and educating them and saying, hey, look, this is what we require, and this is what we do, and make that type of thing happen. And that's all we can do to progress surveying profession through aspects of this. It's becoming more and more that people want to push us away from what we do. You can GPS on your phone. Yeah, right. That's what it is.
Yeah. I think, yes, especially GIS information that's being readily available to the public. And even civil engineers want to say that these shape files are concrete. So, or, some information for GIS. So I think there's definitely a lot of misinformation around even from coming through GIS and whatnot.
So Stacy, you're my hero. Don't give up, and don't give up. And Stacy, I don't want you to think I'm giving up either. I'm still trying to. We got a real estate agent that rents next door to us in our office building, and we're talking with him on a regular basis. So I'm not giving up. It's been depressing and frustrating. Absolutely. So, but don't give up. I'm not giving up either. So let me,
get your real estate license.
There you go. Jesse White has something to chime in on this one too.
I mean,
well, here's a real quick comment. I don't know if you guys have seen many pictures from the old days, but the big sign in front of everybody's office said land surveyor, land agent, and lawyer. You know, and that was their big sign back in the 1800s about what they were doing. So.
Yep, exactly. Jesse, what you got?
Yeah, thanks, Trent.
You got the floor since you got the nice Lamborghini in the background.
Thanks.
You must know what you're talking about.
No more than anybody else in this room.
It's all good.
So I just appreciate you guys.
Oswego. I know where Lake Oswego is. You're right there, Portland, baby.
So I do appreciate everybody being on here. And we're having all of these conversations over mentoring and providing additional knowledge to ourselves. And a comment that you guys made a second ago was how long and how much effort should we do or put forth to educate our clients? Well, as professionals, we actually have an obligation to educate and protect the public. So I think that through these mentoring Mondays, as we continue on, one of the obligations that I think we're going to have is to take the information that we learn here, go continue research beyond this, looking through our state statutes, and then take time to go educate 1, 2, or 3, 4 more individuals that are in our community. Because I think that's what's really going to help elevate our industry and eliminate a lot of these issues. So I personally, in my practice, I have a conversations free for the first one. You know, even if it's a 4-hour conversation, I'll sit down and talk to you for free. Just try and educate them and go through their needs and let them know what some of their avenues are. And I want to circle back to a comment that Landon made a second ago or a few minutes ago on telling a client to go just reestablish a brand new fence in the old fence line position. I deal a lot in adverse possession claims. And so with that, I would probably not advise a client to do that because 1, it eliminates the original evidence of occupation. And in some of the rural areas, sometimes it's the preponderance of occupational evidence is the only way we can establish boundary. And therefore, when you put a new fence line in, you can actually eliminate your AP claim.
So I guess, yeah, it's a good comment, Jesse. I need to think about it. You know, you might be right. I guess my challenge is, you know, I can just tell you 90% of the homeowners I talk to do not have the money and aren't going to pay for a boundary survey to put in a fence. So I wish everybody did, and I wish everybody would. I don't have a good answer to that. You know, I don't have a solution to that problem. You know, there's some retired folk, some retired DOT guys, city county guys that'll do those surveys for real cheap. I don't know how good of a job they're doing, but
hey, I do a great job, but I don't work cheap, Landon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So no, it's a good question, Jesse. I understand what you're saying for sure.
Because not all states, and so the other comment to that is, how many people can write a legal description?
Not many.
A real legal description, or because everybody tries.
Pretty much anybody can put some words on a paper and have that thing filed, and then put warranty deed across the top.
Exactly. But
only a surveyor can define a boundary or create a unit of land. So when you have individuals following in the footsteps of a piece of paper that was written by a title company, you're telling your client to put a lot of trust that document is true.
Yeah, but you got to remember, It doesn't take much to put it in the public recorder's office, and then all of a sudden somebody thinks it's true.
Exactly, and that's why I would hesitate
I agree
on leading a client down a path.
I agree with you on the fence issue. Here in California, you never go without holding a fence, and then even if you're doing a boundary, you topo the fence and then look at it, and then you have to continue to follow through the research, and then you let the client say, hey, look.
Yeah, so
that fence is a line of occupation. It requires that it be studied.
Yeah, so let me clarify, because I think people might have misunderstood me a little bit, and then I'll jump us into point number 2. So,
and then Jim Franklin's got his hand raised too.
So. Okay, so I'm talking about, and I don't want to get us totally sidetracked. I'm talking about somebody that's got a fence and they want to put in a new fence, and they call me and say, before I put my fence in, I want to know if I should get a survey. And I tell them, hey, I'd love to get you a survey. I don't do boundary surveys for less than $4 or $5 grand. And they say, oh my God, I can never spend that much money. I said, look, if everybody's happy with where the current fence is at, just replace your fence where it's at, right? Like I'm replacing my fence right now in my house, right? And I'm a surveyor, right? And I'm just putting the new fence up, right, with a post from the old fence. So, at some point, I mean, you got to worry a little bit about possession issues. I understand that, but the cost of a fence most of the time is a fraction of the cost of a good boundary survey for most of the parcels I'm dealing with. And most people will just put that fence up, right?
Trent, I'm sorry, Landon, most of the time people accept the fence, and then that's it. So, you all understand. And then when you come in to purchase that property, when you come in to deal with that stuff, and you hopefully talk to your neighbors, some of you don't. But those are all standards that you live by. You accept it, boom. It is the way it is. And then if you try to say, well, I want to modify it, well, then as a surveyor, and you accept that job from the client, then you're going to be held up to a legal standard and possibly have to go to court for it. So, you're going to have to stand up for that type of idea.
Yeah. Jim, you wanted to chime in? You got something to add? Oh, you put it in the chat. Go ahead. You can unmute yourself. There you go, Jim.
I personally like to let Landon get back to about business.
Right.
Did he have a?
Yeah, talking about recording laws by state. Oh, he doesn't have a microphone. Okay, got it, Jim. So he's in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut since 1983, and none of these states require recording of a survey plan. Which there's still states that don't have recording laws. All of these states require setting corners. Many of the old surveyors set wood stakes or field stones as corners and markers. Following in their footsteps is almost impossible, especially after 50, 100, and 150 years. I've often remarked that the best thing that a state can do is require all surveys to be recorded. Yeah. And that'd be another interesting topic to research. How many states require recording? And I know it's quite a few, but it'd be interesting to know what that number is. North Carolina does not require surveys to be recorded. And that goes, so on a business topic, right? I mean, when you're selling a business in these states that don't require recording laws, that's a huge benefit to somebody purchasing a company where, in another company like here in Nevada, we require our surveys to be recorded. You're not buying a business, you're buying it for its assets maybe, or its equipment and some trucks and stuff, but you're not buying the records anymore. So I might have to dig into that, Jim, to see how many states. I'll do some research to see how many actually do recording laws.
If you live here in Cali, you have to have a corner record.
At a minimum, yeah. So, Landon, you're muted. There you go.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It'd be tough to work in one of those states, I know. So let me get to I'll get my second topic real quick, and then we'll let Trent chime in and if he's got anything to add. So it's just determining your place in the market. That's something that, I don't know. obviously I've only been running my business for a year, but so Trent, there's an interesting balance, that Trent talked about that I hadn't really thought about. I tend to think that most survey firms are too general and not specialized enough. But Trent mentioned the other side of that, which is, you want a little bit of diversity because that makes you a little more resilient. I guess my counter to that, so I agree with Trent. I think that's important. My counter to that is, I think it's really hard to be good at everything there is in surveying today. It's getting more and more complicated. Even at my shop now, I'm not the guy that stays up on UAVs. So I've got a guy that, I've got my UAV pilot cert, but it's too hard for me to run a business and be a great boundary surveyor and a title guy and a land use planner and a UAV pilot. So like I've got a guy, UAVs are his thing, and so I think part of what, especially if you're starting your own firm, you're probably starting out small, you're not, and I think, part of the way that part of how you can be successful is by figuring out your niche and trying not to take on the whole world, to take on everything. It's just, it's going to raise your equipment costs, and it's going to, it's going to increase you're going to need more people to be trained in more different things. So certainly to start out, I've got 3 full-time people and we're really focused on one specific market. And I don't chase stuff out of my market. I had a client that came to me a month ago, was a public agency, and they said, hey, we've got 10 miles of canal that we want to map. And can you do it? We don't have time. They have survey staff in-house, but they said, we don't have time. Can you come in and do this? And I just told them, I said, hey, I would love that work right now. I could really use it. It's wintertime and things are a little quiet. I said, but that's not in my wheelhouse. I don't have the right tool set. I said, let me refer you to a really good surveyor that does that kind of work. And, please call me the next time you have a project. Maybe it will be in my wheelhouse. And so I did. I referred that work. It was almost $100,000 worth of work that I referred to a friend of mine at a bigger company. And he's got a $300,000 UAV LiDAR setup, and that they eat 10-mile corridor projects for breakfast, right? And so that's just part of me knowing my niche. Now, I'll be honest with you, my partner and I thought about it because we really needed the work. And we were kind of on the fence. And I tell you what, after we went out, so we ended up helping with the project a little bit. We went out and helped with some of the control and did a little bit. But after I saw that thing on the ground, about the second day we were out there, I looked at my partner and I'm like, man, I am so glad we didn't bite this off because we'd have got our butts kicked.
Well, that's a big question I have for you, Landon. What was it that held you back from talking to the other company and saying, hey, can we do a concerted effort here and do this project and you still be there to gain experience and money and let them, do that and in all effects, still make it with the client?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mr. Adams. I guess the answer is I'm not a great business person yet, so I'm still learning. Maybe in 12 years, I'll be like Trent and I'll have all that stuff figured out. But actually, it's interesting you brought that up. So just to tell you what actually happened is the client came back to us and said, hey, that's great. We appreciate you referring us to your friend that's got this fancy contraption. We don't know that guy and we don't trust him. So they said, we'd like to hire you and you're going to sign and seal the deliverable. And because we want somebody we trust to be on the hook. And so I said, all right, well, so for a small fee, we agreed to do that. And we went out on the ground because I wanted to be in responsible charge and actually see the project being executed. But yeah, so no, that was a good comment. But so anyways, the whole point of the story, I guess, is know your niche. And, you probably can't be good at everything, especially as a small firm, as a new firm. And so, you kind of pick your niche and I've picked a very specific niche. And, we seems like we do well on that. And I think, part of being a good consultant, I can't remember if it was Jesse that talked about this or who talked about it, but, being a good consultant and being ethical. And I think part of that is not practicing out of your area of competence. Right. And so sometimes
at the same time, Landon, you only gain experience in this profession through stepping out a little bit.
Yeah.
And reaching out and,
Yep.
and taking the challenge and the
Yeah. There's a
as a good business owner, you will practice the steps to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so there's a balance there, right? And so in this case, Mr. Adams, it worked out because I got to work with the expert, right? In this case, the expert had a boss that was licensed, and so I got to work with the expert, and I got to learn a little bit. And they're going to provide me with a signed product, and then I'm going to provide the actual client with a signed product with my name on it. But yeah, so there's a good situation where we got to learn a little bit about the technology, but I had somebody that I'm falling back on, right, that I trust. And so yeah, so it worked out well. But I don't know if there's anything else.
Landon, I think the point I was trying to make to you is there's the future. It's called the future. And that allows you now to move forward in those type of things that you just went through. You can do them again and again and move on.
Yeah, and I hope that company we worked with that help, if they get a project where they need some help, I think they'd call us because we've worked together well and things went well. So
that's all what we're about. In this profession, you have to be about that.
Yeah. So Trent, did you want to say, do you have anything to add about knowing your market?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, in our instance, we do a lot of wireless. We'll do altas. We'll do boundary topos. So, I mean, it's still a survey aspect in every one of these. It's just having a different client, that we do a lot of cell towers for, or that we'll do a lot of 1As for. But inside that market, we may have 5 or 6 clients that do nothing but those wireless. So you may have, that way you kind of spread it out. If one particular one is all of a sudden overloaded and now they've told told Verizon they're not taking on any more work, but we still have 4 other ones that we're working for, all of a sudden they still got a huge share that wasn't provided to the first client. So you want to have, in our instance, we have probably 8 to 12 civil engineers that we do specifically all of their work. Well, again, it's having multiple companies inside those different layers that's going to create that diversity. So same thing on the construction side. We still bid competitively, but we don't give our services away. And we also have, again, 6 or 7 GCs that we do, 90% of their work. So it doesn't mean. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yep.
Brent, the other thing, Landon, is if you're not comfortable with your clients or a prospective client, then you don't have to take it. That's the whole thing about our business. You don't have to deal with that. You can move on, and there's so much variable to do that. Just say, hey, look, I'm sorry, we just can't, deal with you. I would guarantee you that in the future, when you get to that ability to deal with that individual client, that they'll take you on.
Yeah. And one of the other things, the point that I'd like to make on that too would be, you have to have the ability, and it's talked about in a million seminars, but you have to have that ability to fire a client. And if you have multiple companies inside that same sector that you're working with, and that person's not paying the bills, you got to have that ability to be able to fire the clients because either they're difficult to work with, or their payment history is absolutely horrible, and you're financing their project. So by creating those different layers and different diversities inside your niches, your ability to fire a client is just that much better to deal with. So yeah, I think you've done videos on this, haven't you? But
yeah, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah. Yep.
I just wanted to share this website. So this is a really great book. I think it might have been on my list, Trent, that I gave you, and he talks a little bit about exactly what you're talking about, which is kind of the difference between being vertically positioned and horizontally positioned. And anyway, so if you guys like business, I just listened to this audio book. It's a really good book, and it just talks in more detail about some of what Trent's been talking about. And, kind of the diversity versus specialization trade-off. And anyways, it's really good. It's called The Business of Expertise. So I thought I'd share that. It's probably the best business book I've ever read. really learned a lot from it. So I'm trying to catch up to Trent without taking 12 years. So I'm reading some books.
So along with that line, I'll just say, you gotta control your growth, right? And so I started off as a single surveyor and have just been able to kind of control our growth and grow organically, just adding a few bodies a year. And so don't overdo it and don't bite off too much. And we've been able to kind of control that growth. And like I said, we hired 4 last year. We hired 2 this year, which took us to 27. And then, like I said earlier, we had one gentleman get onto a fire department. So that takes us back to 26, but manage your growth through great clients. That's probably the best way to describe that.
Yeah. And I would just add, probably the biggest mistake I've seen my former employers make is growing too fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to say no to that money. And so I've seen that mistake made over and over again. And when you're making it because the quality of your work goes down, right? And it happens most frequently when you're throwing inexperienced people at your projects without the right supervision. So yeah, I totally would second that, Trent, for sure. All right, are we ready for number 3?
Let's go.
Okay, so my number 3 is just how to transfer knowledge from senior staff to junior staff is one of my huge problems. And that's been a problem even before I started my own business. But it's even more a problem now. And I call this the hit by the bus problem. So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, what happens? The answer right now is we're in big trouble. And so I want to not be in that place, right? So one of the things I'm doing with my number 2 guy is we're really working hard to get him licensed in the next 18 months. And not just get him licensed, but teach him what he needs to learn. So, he was a construction surveyor primarily for about 10, 15 years. And so just teaching him how to be a boundary surveyor. And that's a huge investment. It takes a lot of time and energy. But it's finally paying off. So we were out today and he did a boundary survey. He found about 15 corners by himself. And I could have not been there today and he'd have done all right. I was there because he's still learning. But I'm always thinking about how I can make that more efficient, how I can make that knowledge transfer process more efficient. One of the things that I'm trying to do now that is kind of new is just using video as a tool. I find myself teaching the same things over and over again. So what I try and do now is when I have an employee or a team member that needs to learn something, I try and do a video, a screencast, or sometimes I'll get in front of the whiteboard. And what that's allowed me to do, I haven't been 100% successful with this, but it's getting there. Is now instead of having to stop and teach the same thing again, the second or third or fourth time, I can tell my team member, hey, go watch this video that I recorded. And then when you come back, let's sit down for 10 minutes and talk about it. This part of the reason why I love the Mentoring Mondays thing that Trent and Rob got going is because there's some great stuff on here now. So now I'm not the only one, right, that's doing videos. I got some other great instruction going. And so I can tell my people, hey, there's a great topic about that on Mentoring Mondays. Go watch that video. And so I think, I'm excited about video because I think it allows us to scale the learning, without the cost, which I'm really excited about what that might do for us as a profession. And a lot of people, you just learn better. Everything we do on the computer is so much better in video versus on in a written form, I think. So I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to use video as a tool. You guys may probably know I work really hard to put together written guidelines with workflows, and that's part of how I'm trying to get my knowledge out of my brain and onto paper in a manner that my people can follow. And that's a massive effort that's constantly overwhelming me. There's a lot that I've just assimilated over the last 20 years that I'm trying to put down on paper for folks and put in video for folks. But one of the things the mistake that I'm trying not to repeat is so much of what I learned as being a good surveyor geodetic control and boundary I've either learned on my own, through just self-study, or absorbed on the job, or learned school of hard knocks. And I don't want my people to have to go through that, right? I want, to the extent that I can, that's with, I got to sleep too, but, I'm trying to set my employees up to where they don't have the pain that I had. And it's a challenge, but I'm trying to use technology to do some of that. I got a 19-year-old or 20-year-old gal working for me. She's super smart. I think she's going to work for me for a long, long time. I hope she's going to be a surveyor one day. And, I don't want her to have to, sit down with Browns and have to figure out Browns. Right? Like, Browns is a great book, but man, I've been going back through Browns and trying to do videos of each chapter of Browns, and Browns is freaking hard, man. It's harder than I remembered from college, I don't know if my brain was more plastic then or what, but so anyways, I'm trying to use video as a tool, and I'm trying to use workflows as a tool to kind of get the knowledge out of my brain and into the brains of my people. But I'd love to hear from Trent and some others kind of how they're dealing with the knowledge transfer problem. Is it important, and how do you do it?
YouTube is never going to replace a surveyor in the field. I'm going to tell, or in the office. Brown is. Abraham Lincoln taught himself to be a surveyor under candlelight. What's the difference? The thing is, these are standards that we've grown with and that we've been taught, and which have become standards for the way we do work. And so if you don't have a place within your region to send your individuals to school, then you should open up a library for them to research or to read all this old stuff. Just, there is no second hand against that, and the way to get around it. Because these are the laws and the standards that we've learned by. So that's how I look at it. And, all state standards, and when you go to take the test, they refer to these things. So just doing YouTube, no, that's never going to work.
I would say you're right. It's a huge problem. The solution is you just have to clone yourself about 3 times so you can be in 3 places at once. You can't
do that because I'm retiring.
But the transfer of information and knowledge is our duty.
Yeah. Again, the premise behind Mentoring Mondays. Michael, I'll just say one quick note, and then you can chime in. I know you were trying to chime in real quick. So I guess a couple of things is creating the kind of a diversified employment staff, right? So you've got senior party chiefs, and you've got the younger instrument operators who are going to kind of gain knowledge. You have that senior mapper, and then you have the guys that are kind of just doing, designer type work. We'll use the civil engineering term, but designer type work underneath them. So it's creating that staff that's going to mentor between each one. And in our instance, we have kind of the same thing. A lot of our mappers we have 3 mappers that are all LSs, and then we have 2 other ones that are pushing 25 and 30 years mappers. And then I have a couple of younger ones that, are just kind of starting out. So it's creating those layers and diversified staff that you're going to be able to spread that knowledge. I will say, just on a jokingly note, that I'm running these Mentoring Mondays and I don't have a single employee ever sign up for any one of these classes. So, it goes back to the old, no one wants to hear dad talk scenarios, right? From the parenting worlds. But, so I just, kind of have our guys mentor each other the best they can. And then, it's the days like you, I'm self-taught. I actually didn't even go to college. I don't have a 4-year degree or nothing. This is 100% self-taught on my dime. And, obviously mentors and people kind of coming along the way, but I've done, I would say 90% of this being a self-taught person. So it can be done, but there's a select few of us that can probably do it. So, Michael, you've been wanting to chime in for a little bit, so go for it.
Yeah, it's all well said, and you're right, Trent. In the older days, I'll date myself. You know, when you had multiple crew members in a crew, you know, it started at the bottom. If you're the chain person or the laborer, packer, brush cutter, you learn how to become a chainman, and then the instrument man mentored you, and you run an optical instrument, and then you got some comps from the party chief, and it wasn't all on the supervising LS. Now with our smaller crews, because of changes in technology and stuff, that you just really can't fill in that way. I think those companies that recognize that they are going to provide mentoring in benefits a couple ways. One is a stable workforce. We all see the problem in the surveying community that you have high turnover. And as a businessman, you know the real cost of every time you lose an employee, of cost of getting a new one, training them, even if they're trained and know technically how to do your business. That all is overhead and costs you money. So retention is huge. And an example, this company that's hired me, because I failed at retirement. Now it's like the second time. I thought I was all done surveying, but I really like that part. And so that's my job. Why I was late here was I was training and teaching, you know, younger staff, and providing written. And I like what Landon says, that the video is huge, and just this meeting, go to meeting stuff that a lot of us were maybe forced to with COVID. I close with, okay, you know, today I was teaching them how to research, you know, the records for doing a boundary survey. And I said, you know, you're going to try it. Here's your outline. Here's all the links to the sites. If you have a problem, just call me up. I'll share a screen. I'll talk you through it, you know. And so there's some real opportunities. And then if you're in this long enough and your community knows you're a mentor, and the companies do, and you do stuff like presenting papers at conferences or, you know, joining a site like this, they appreciate it. And when I was a regional surveyor for DOT as part of my career for 3 years, I had some young guys that one was a great CAD guru, the other two were in the field. They didn't know, you know, it's going to take them forever. They're in the union with DOT. How are they going to move up? And I inspired them. I was new. I wasn't, you know, career DOT. And I said, hey, well, challenge yourselves. Let's get your LS license. Come on, I'll help you study. We'll take 1 day, 2 days a week and an hour, and I'll help you with getting it. They all got their LSs. Guess who's, you know, their survey lead, their second in command, and a person that the third one is in their right-of-way section, sort of their chief internal right-of-way mapping guy. Those are the three I mentored. So now we want to get work, you know, talk to those guys. You think they're going to remember who helped them. And so if you can provide a benefit to your employees, the benefit being mentoring and improving their skill set, expanding that. If they have a choice between two employers, you know, pay and benefits are reasonably the same. You know, what's an employee going to choose? Where, you know, that's hopefully who they stay with, and then save you money as a business to get longer term employees. I mean, it used to be people be career, but now if you can get five years at a place out of someone, it's a lot better than 5 weeks or 5 months. So that's all I had to say on that. It's a good subject.
I'll just chime in on that. I will say this particular month, we just, I think it to be 83% of our staff has been here 5 years or more. So
awesome.
Employee retention is, like he says, is massive. So
yeah. So let me real quick respond to just what Michael said. So I think part of what I just wanted to convey to folks that might be thinking about starting their own businesses, and this speaks to what Trent and Michael both touched on, this is, you know, one thing that I didn't properly anticipate was how much of the training I was going to have to do, just because we're a small firm and I don't have that structure underneath me like Trent does, right? So when you start out, you know, if you're starting out and you're small, you as the LS are probably going to be doing a lot of training, right? And I look forward to when I've got a couple people underneath me that can take on some of that, you know. So as you grow, that training, your ability to train scales, right? Because if I train 3 people, now those 3 people can each train 3 people, that kind of thing. And I'm just not there yet. And I underestimated the level of training that I was going to be doing. And that also touches on Michael's point about, we don't run 4-man crews anymore. I know people have heard me preach about this before, but I will say, so I only run 2-man crews. I do not run 1-man crews. And I've got that 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid working for me now 3 days a week. And my partner and I were laughing the other day. I think we're faster when he's not there than we are when he's there. I'm not paying him a lot. I think we're paying him $18 an hour, which was not a huge amount of money. But the reason I'm doing that is because that kid's an investment, right? In 2 years or 3 years, he's going to be a really good party chief, I hope. He's going to be really good at boundary topos. And but if I'm not spending that money, I'm not going to have him in 2 or 3 years, right? And I don't want to steal people from Trent because he pays too much, right? So I got to grow my own. And and that also ties into the retention thing that Trent and Michael were talking about. I don't want to lose that kid, right? I'm putting a lot of time and money into him. I'm gonna make sure he's happy, right? Because I don't want him going anywhere. And I think a lot of companies do a bad job of that, making sure their people are happy. So we're trying to do that. Let me say just one more thing before I get to point 4, and that is, motivating millennials and zillennials is a challenge. That's what I find. Getting them to make that effort. So part of what we've done at my company, and this is an experiment we're running. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but so we actually developed a professional development program that has points, and so you earn points for the stuff you learn on the job, and we track it. So you're evaluated every month, and we track what new skills you're learning on the job, and those are assigned points. And then we also have points you can earn off the job, right? So by taking a community college course or getting one of your CSTs, or you can earn points by watching videos and reading articles. And then what we do is we tie that directly into your compensation. So every point you earn is worth so much in a compensation increase. But what we're doing is we're telling folks, hey, 1/3 of your points have to come from the category that's not on the job, right? So we want to recognize, the reason we built that system the way we did is we're trying to solve 2 problems, right? I don't want a situation where I've got somebody that's been working for me for a couple of years and I've failed to recognize their growth, right? Because that's a problem. That's part of how you lose people, right? So we're making an active effort to track the progress that people are making on a monthly basis. What that forces me to do as an owner is to sit down and say, hey, I hired this guy. He was a dipstick 3 years ago, and I still think he's a dipstick. But the reality is he's not a dipstick anymore. He's had 3 years of training under me, right, and under my partner. And here's the things he knows that he didn't know 3 years ago. Am I paying him appropriately, right? So it forces me to do that as an owner. And the other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to teach these kids, hey, you can't expect to get all your training on the job and get paid for it, right? Like you have to make some small investment in your own skills. Now, like I said, it's just an experiment. We only started doing it about 3 months ago. I'm not sure how it's going to work yet, but that's something that we're going to try out. So,
did any of them get married?
Get married?
Have family? Move on? Move up? Do that kind of thing that we all think is the right thing to do, or what?
Yeah, I got one I think that's getting close, Mr. Adams. We'll see. She's getting close, but we'll see what happens. So
I hate to tell you this, but in 1977, I started out as a chainman at $14.75 an hour. So I don't know how much it's gone since then. I got 17 by the time 1977. I was making $17 an hour as a chainman. Doesn't appear that it's advanced much.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm not paying enough, Mr. Adams. I might have to reevaluate that. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Of course, you haven't seen this kid work either, so you might. He's pretty green.
Well, I don't know. Out of college with a 2-year degree, I was pretty green too. I was chopping down bushes when I shouldn't have been. So
yeah, we'll see. So okay, so let me get to my last point. I don't want to keep people too late.
I'll throw 2 notes on there real quick on yours.
Go ahead.
So no, you're good. So Mr. Adams, I started at $5.25 an hour in October of 1995.
Whoa! Oh.
And then to your point about,
Sorry to hear that, Trent.
I know, right? So to your point about training and, trying to you personally doing all the training, we chatted a little bit about it during the 3D scanning one. And I have a $50,000 paperweight basically now as a 3D scanner because I was the only one who knew how to use it. And, as I grew and came out of the field and lost touch with all of that, no one else knows how to use it. So we have a $50,000 paperweight. So it does happen.
I'm going to come get that
like
from
us?
you, Trent.
I know Rob's already volunteered to come and borrow it.
Yeah, so that just illustrates the danger, right, of being the only guy that knows how to do stuff. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, so it does. Yeah, Danny started $3.85 in 1993. So
wow. I'm fortunate. I started at 15 in 2003, so I was doing okay, I guess.
There you go.
All right, so the last thing I have was just this is something I've struggled with. All four of these things are things I struggle with. So this is one that I've struggled with. I think we're getting better at it, but it's still it's a frustration of mine, and that is finding the balance between sharing expertise and providing expertise to a potential client, and then you get to the point where you're just working for free for somebody, right? And so it's kind of this struggle of when do you tell people, hey, I've provided you enough help, I need to get you under contract, and I'll just share with you that I work with land attorneys that have this problem only worse, right? So they get people all the time that just want to ask all kinds of questions. And at some point as an attorney, you have to tell people, hey, you got to sign a retainer agreement and give me a check, and I got to get you under contract, right? And one of the things that I've learned from attorneys is, attorneys have to be careful because at some point when they're given that advice, they acquire a responsibility to that person, whether they're under contract or not, right? And so you have to be very careful about that. I'm not exactly 100% sure how those rules apply to surveyors, but it's made me a little more cautious about how much advice I'm willing to give. The other thing that I've noticed, and this is probably something Trent doesn't do anymore because he learned a long time ago, but when I first started, I was spending way too much time with folks on the phone. Now, Jesse mentioned, I do think I agree with Jesse, there is an obligation to educate the public, and I do take phone calls, and I will spend 20 or 30 minutes with people on the phone, trying to educate them a little bit. But I've learned, I'd say 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 3 clients will just really abuse that. So I had a gal just a month ago that, told me she was going to hire me for a survey. I pulled all the maps. I figured out where the corners were. I was answering questions about her zoning. I was like, I spent 2 days with this gal trying to get her prepped and ready to sign a contract. And then she called me the third day and said, hey, I found a retired engineer that lives 2 blocks down from me. He's going to do my survey for $1,500. So, she had no appreciation for any of the value I demonstrated. All she was worried about was getting the cheapest price. So I still struggle with that a little bit, knowing where that line is, between trying to do a little public education and demonstrate to people that you know what you're talking about, and, not being a sucker. I will tell you that over the last year, I am doing less free advice than I was when I started. And part of what I realized is if I didn't get that under control, I was going to consume half my week, right? And just not be in business. And we get a lot of calls. I mean, we get a ton of calls. We get 2 or 3 calls a day. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if guys in my area are answering their phone or what it is, but we get a lot of phone calls. And so, if you got to be careful, because if you're spending 2 hours a call and you're getting 2 or 3 calls a day, you're burning half your work week, right? So go ahead, Trent, hit me with it. What am I doing wrong?
I was just going to say it kind of contradicts what you had said earlier on why you spoke to the gentleman about the $20,000 survey. So you walked him through the whole scenario. You proved that you're, the expert in that particular arena or in that area for your boundary survey. I guess I'm going to be the flip side, and it's no joke. I probably average 100 plus emails a day, and or 15 calls a day. But I will walk them through every single time. And if it's as simple as telling them to walk out to their driveway and kind of find a curb scribe so that they can see if the block wall was built in the right spot, I'll do that. That's part of the educating the client, because maybe it was of $500 block wall survey that you didn't want to take, but you helped them out, show them where that curb scribe was, and saved them some time. All of a sudden it turns into they're buying a half-acre parcel and now they need a boundary survey. So I will walk anybody through any scenario the best I can, because they will come back, and it may be just a smaller one now, but the way you build a business is just a spider web, and it's word of mouth. You're going to get 90% of your business through word of mouth, and everybody just kind of talking you up and talking your business up. And you didn't help him that day, but hey, call Landon because he gave me some great advice, and maybe he can help you. So I am the opposite of that conversation.
I agree with Trent, because like I said, I'll go back to the golf. I golfed with these guys and they said, hey, I got a fence problem and all this stuff. And I said, well, you have your title report and you have your subdivision track map, and I've got a copy of that, and it's going to state where this is. And I said, generally, right of ways at the back of sidewalk and this type of thing, and pull a tape down, and at the end of the day they're trying to talk me into going over there and helping them pull the tape and do all that stuff, and offering me this and a beer and everything like that. So in the end result, I said, hey, this is simple enough for you to do, if you just do this, and then I'll see you again sometime, or where I'm at, type thing. And
Exactly.
It'll wind up being, where if it is such a difficult issue, and I said, you got to realize when you start to do this type of thing, then you're going to incur legal costs. You're fighting, this guy, that guy, whatever, and try to give them an overall picture of, what can happen just because they want to do this. And at the same time, I may be losing money, but at the same time, I may be saving myself a whole lot of grief, type thing. So.
Yeah, I don't think we have to have that attorney standpoint where you're on the phone and you're billing them for 15 minutes, right? It's it will again, creating that spider web and creating that word of mouth. That $500 block wall thing might turn into somebody who wants to develop an entire commercial center because he's buddies with somebody else. So this slide Jesse just shared, but I shared the screen if you guys can see that. But I think Gary Kent also had put it up a few weeks ago, it was Jay Seymour had shared it a few weeks ago. So pick two of those items, right? Pick any two you want.
That's Jay Seymour right there.
Yeah, exactly. That was Jay's.
Yeah. That's a good slide. So
yeah.
So Trent, that was great feedback. So Trent sounds like Trent's a little more generous than I am, and maybe I need to rethink that a little bit. So I guess everything on this list I struggle with, right? So I struggle with knowing where that balance is. I guess that's why it's on the list. I could definitely spend way too much time, probably, trying to help people. And maybe part of the challenge I have too, I know Trent's super busy, but I'm the only LS, and we've only got 3 people. So maybe part of that's just my struggle to spend time on high priority tasks. But
I wasn't always. Remember, I started as a single guy, so I've been in every one of your shoes along the way. So
I think everybody has made a good point, and I think Rob would even like to say that as well. Is that you've all made good points about having a business and the struggles that we go through every day to have a business. You don't know if it's up or down or what's going on. It's a constant ebb and flow within this profession about what you do. So, all you can do is stick to your own characteristics, stick to your own integrity, be your own guy, and you brought that out today, Landon. You said that. Trent's brought that out in his aspect of that. So
Yeah, let me share something that I have done, Trent, to try and capture a little bit of value from those conversations. So, if it goes well, a lot of times I'll help people after 30 minutes or an hour on the phone, and I'm not going to do a survey for them, but one of my buddies taught me. He said, hey, email or text those folks and ask them if they'll give you a testimonial, a little blurb for your website. And so I started doing that, and I would say about half of the time I get somebody to reply, and they write me a really nice little paragraph that we can put on their website with their name. And so that is one way for me to get a little bit of value, to recapture some of the value of that time. So that's just something I'll throw out there as a possibility for folks.
So that means you're on Yelp? Can I give you a Yelp?
I probably am on Yelp. I probably don't want to read what's on the Yelp, but so we have a little section on our website just for client testimonials, and I don't know, we got a dozen or so people on there, and so anyways, that's just a suggestion. If you are helping people and demonstrating some value, it doesn't hurt to ask for a little referral, a little testimonial. A lot of times people will do that for you. So that's about what I had. Now you guys know my pain points for the last year. Those are my 4 major pain points.
No worries. No worries.
Well, personally, I want to thank you for your time and everything today.
Absolutely. Thanks for tagging in on this. Anybody else want to kind of chime in? I know I will say Mitch is when Mitch and I did talk the other day, his number one challenge to a business, which we didn't even discuss tonight, which we can allow him to elaborate on, and all of us have the same issue, but is cash flow, obviously, right? That's his number one challenge, and something he thinks about constantly. George wants to chime in. He keeps on muting.
Yeah, bottom line, guys, it's all about relationships. And
absolutely.
It doesn't matter what profession you're in. That's what business is all about.
100%.
So if you can establish good relationships with good clients, and Trent's right, you need to be able to fire some, and I've got a couple I need to fire. You're going to be way ahead. You've got a good start.
Yeah, exactly.
I noticed that's been getting a little harder to do these days, George, with everything going on and antagonism and everything we have going on in life and all that stuff. But yeah, that is.
Hey, Danny's got some good topic there. So Danny moved from Wisconsin to Colorado, if you guys see this in the chat room, but he's at a crossroads in his career. He left an engineering company, is now looking to start his own business in Colorado. And I believe Nolan might have jumped off already, but Nolan's also looking to start a business later this year, and he's kind of going through some of the setup on all that kind of stuff too. But
yeah, call me. Yeah, no, like I definitely give me a call. Like I can help. If those guys want to know. When I started, I didn't know what does professional liability insurance cost, what timesheet software do I use, what project management software do I use, what do we do about CAD? Like, yeah, if you guys are thinking about it, have them call me. I can save them so much heartache.
Landon, I'll take you up on that.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, give me a buzz, man. I'll keep you up. If you got an hour to carve out, well, I can tell you all the stuff we've been beating our head on for the last year.
Okay, I'll shoot you an email and we'll figure something out offline.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll go back.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Danny, just off topic, sell weed, quit surveying.
Yeah, quit surveying. Yeah, that might be the best advice. No.
Never. Danny, you can call me too anytime. So I've
appreciate you.
I know Nolan, because Nolan and I have had some conversations on the side as well. So I'm here to help anybody as well. So
thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you too, Trent. And as
of course,
I know Rob's been hanging in here the last few months and things like that.
Yep.
It's a pleasure to step in, even after 40 plus years of being in this profession. The insight and stuff you offer through this site through this, that you're doing here.
Yeah.
I still pick up on stuff and things like that.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
I kind of lost, interest in this profession after so long, and said it's gone to crap, and at the same time, it really hasn't. It's just a way of, but you and this
Your perception, yep.
Yeah, it's added to me coming back into the profession.
I love it. Good. That's what we want. Because, like I said, part of the mantra of the whole thing is whether you're just starting out or you're a 50-year surveyor, everybody's got questions and everybody needs answers. So
64, been in California since 77 surveying. So.
There you go. That's awesome. Anybody else want to kind of chime in? Landon, thanks so much. I love it.
Oh, no problem. You mentioned cash flow, Trent. That should have been on my list. It is a huge deal. And, I would, for the guys that are thinking about starting a business, you probably need twice as much cash as you think. I had some savings when I started, but it wasn't enough. And, it always takes longer to get, I would say it takes twice as long to get work under contract and twice as long to get paid as you think, like almost every time. And and having said that, I think I am way better than most surveyors on cash flow management. That's what I suspect. I would say we get deposits. I get deposits on 75% of my work, which is pretty rare for the surveying industry. And I also say probably 75% of my projects, I don't deliver final drawings till my last bill's paid. So we're religious about it, and it's still a huge challenge. So you definitely have to be disciplined. I can't wait to hear Mitch talk some more about cash flow for sure.
Yeah. Landon, one quick last one. What about equipment? And you bringing in equipment, starting your business, and then where you're at with purchasing more equipment now?
Yeah, so I can make it. That's a great question. I'll respond real quick if that's okay, Trent.
No.
So actually, about 5 years before I started the business, I bought a little total station because I'm just a total survey geek, and we got a big tax return one year, and I asked my wife kindly for her permission, and so she let me buy a little 2-second Nikon reflectorless total station. And I tell you what, it was the best $15,000 I've ever spent in my whole life. And we actually, and I when I bought it, I told her, if we ever have to, I could feed my family with this tool. And at the time I said it, I was just joking. And man, here I am feeding my family with that thing. And you guys are gonna laugh at me, but I store it next to my bed in my room. It's just. And it's a really good little instrument. So, I was fortunate to have that when I started. And then, I'll tell you, one of my pet peeves is gear that doesn't work. And if I had a choice, I would only buy new gear. But we actually have 4 used GPS receivers, and we just bought a used TopCon robot. And the reason I'm doing that, and I really hate it, I really hate it. I only buy new rigs. I don't buy used rigs. But I will tell you, so let me tell you why I'm doing that, because I think it's important, and it ties back into the cash flow thing for the guys that are thinking about it. So we've really gone out of our way to try and avoid piling up a bunch of debt to run this business. And so, instead of going out and buying a $35,000 S8, Trimble S8, which is what we wanted, I got 2 pretty good TopCon GPS receivers and a decent TopCon robot for about $9,000 from a friend of mine. And that's not what we want. We would love to have the new gear, but I tell you what, on those months when work is a little slow, it's winter, and work is a little slower than it was 3 or 4 months ago. And it's really nice not to have $2,000 in equipment payments. And when you're like Trent and you've got an established business and 30 people, it's okay to have $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a month in equipment payments. But
I don't think Trent will agree with that.
I was going to go with that. So I started buying equipment off of eBay before I even started my business. So you'll get we all talk about it. Every one of us on here talk about the garage surveyor, right? We're competing against that garage surveyor. Well, that was me back in 2008. I started this business June 1st, 2008, the bottom of the economy. Bought used equipment off of eBay and just leveraged every single thing I had. My wife was already a stay-at-home mom. And so I was our only income to begin with, our only health insurance. I leveraged everything I had. And when you leverage your own personal assets and you do your thing, you have nowhere to go but just to fight tooth and nail to climb out of that hole. So like I said, I started with the eBay equipment. And so fast forward 12 and a half years later, we just finished last month just shy of $5 million in sales for the year. So I'm no longer that typical garage surveyor. So
hey, Trent,
something
you are from Vegas, Trent.
What's that?
You are from Vegas.
I am from Vegas.
Roll of the dice.
That's it. That's exactly. You have to have confidence in yourself, and you gotta be able to do it. So
I'm doing okay, Trent. So I shouldn't feel guilty about my used gear right now, then, right?
Not one bit. But I will.
I got an offer for anybody. I got a T1A inverted with a 300-foot chain. If anybody wants to buy it, and go to work.
Oh man.
Okay, so on that same note, Landon, in December, I just recently bought 5 R12 I's for the tune of $125,000, right?
Yeah.
As you grow, you'll get there. So
no, I'm looking forward to it.
What's the name of that outfit in Vegas that sells Trimble? Mason?
Monson Engineering.
Yeah. They love you.
No, Monson loves us. Monson is a great asset to the survey profession. I will tell you, they are the first ones to put their hand out for any sponsorships that any conference ever needs. So that is the reason, that is the reason now I buy $125,000 instruments, right? And no longer buy from eBay. So
that network situation.
Exactly. So it's good. We're pushing, we're coming up on 2 hours, which is our longest ever one. And when we did, when Rob and I kind of talked about this, we really wanted the back and forth like we had tonight, which is awesome. And I loved every bit of it. And in the beginning, it was kind of everybody wanted a presenter. So I love these back and forths. And I told Rob, I almost wanted to leave out 1 week a month to just kind of have an open forum like this and be able to chat like we did for the last 2 hours. So we may look at that. I am booked through March 8th at this point, but I might leave one open a month where we can just have these back and forth chats. So
Trent, me personally, I think the aspect of being able, you call it mentoring, and the only way to get mentoring is to get feedback from everybody.
Absolutely.
When you just do a presentation, here in OC, we have the chapters, and Rich is doing a real good job and all that, but you just sit there and listen to them, and you really don't get any feedback into it. Your platform here allows us to communicate with each other and to say,
absolutely. Yeah, that was the when we went to the presenter mode, it was, presenter and then the kind of the Q&A on the back end of that particular subject. So, but no, this one was really good. Thanks everybody for kind of chiming in.
Danny Rodick looks like Rich Munger.
I was trying to get Rich. I wanted him to help tag team the 3 of us on here, but
he looks just like him with that little goatee.
He does. Yeah, he does.
I hope that's a compliment.
He is.
Yeah,
he's a handsome young guy.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, no, he was good. I tried to hook him up tonight too, but we'll get Rich on here as well. He's got a lot to say.
Trent, this is Rob.
Yep.
Jim Franklin posted up in the chat asking if we've made a presentation regarding retiring, transition, and continuation of a business. So I'll just say, who was it? Was it Schroeder? Mike Schroeder that said he's not very good at retiring?
Exactly.
And boy, I have certainly not been having a wonderful first month of retirement, but and it is a sketchy feeling to change up what you've been doing for 30 plus years. 30, 35 plus for me. But yeah,
A
that
lot of
might
golf.
be
A lot of
interesting.
golf.
Pardon?
A lot of golf.
A lot of golf. I get tired running around those 18 bases.
I do have a retired Henderson city surveyor who got tired of playing golf and wanted to get back to work. So that doesn't always work.
Rob,
Yeah.
And that's why we have Adams Consulting.
There you go.
Rob, don't feel bad. I'm a retirement failure. I retired in 2010. I went back to work in 2013. I'm thinking about maybe trying it again, but I'm not sure how successful I'll be. But you know what? What I got is I'm doing 2 days a week. I can't beat it. I'm working with good people and good clients, and I love what I do. So there's no reason to quit doing it as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. No, it's like in Jim Cohn, we had him present, and he's in the same situation where Jim's kind of semi-retired and just kind of doing the same thing like Mike, kind of mentoring and reviewing maps and letting things review the maps before they go out the door and that kind of stuff. So same type of thing. So yeah, we'll definitely, I'm sure well, if anybody read my article, you'll see there's going to be a lot of transitions in the next 10 years.
Well, maybe if I make it to Lake Oswego, Jesse will let me drive the car.
There you go.
Yeah, it takes 3 months of employment here first, and yeah, sorry.
Yeah. There you go. Cool.
It's my toy.
Well, I want to thank you all for that. Look forward to seeing you next Monday.
Yes, please.
Thanks,
Loved your interaction. That was awesome. You guys good? Everybody good? All right. We'll do it again Monday. Next Monday is going to be safety. So Gary Kent's going to present a safety topic. We have Matthew Stansberry, who created the party chief vest for safety apparel. And then Kent from the Geoholics is also joining us next week. So to kind of talk about personal safety stuff that they've gone through in their career. So Kent actually had a party chief killed while working with Stantec, I believe it was, down in Phoenix. So some interesting safety related topics that we don't always want to hear about, but we all need to hear about. So that's definitely next week. And then like I said, all of February's all field related, and Landon's coming back to help us February 1st on that one as well. So love it. We'll see you guys again. Thanks, Mr. Marty Crook. Oh, look, Monson was listening in on that anyway.
I thought that's who that was.
So, got anything, Marty? You've been through every aspect of the career.
I can probably pipe in with a couple safety things next week.
Okay, good. Then chime in with us on the safety side. I love it.